morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a little bit of a look at Magneton. Yeah, Magneton's one of those Pokemon that we've not talked about all that much. And it's a Pokemon that's been creeping in. Slowly but surely, steadily over time, Magneton has been kind of just sneaking its way into the metagame in a way that it's kind of really helping VMAX decks. And it can help out a whole bunch of decks, but I think the real niche, and certainly what we're going to be talking about mostly in this video today, is about what Magneton can do for VMAX decks. Now, for those that may have forgotten, because Magneton has not seen a huge amount of play up to now, Magneton has got an absolutely atrocious attack for free energy that does 50 damage. Nobody's excited, nobody's impressed, that attack sucks. But it's got the ability Call Signal. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for up to 3 supporter cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Oh yeah, but this knocks out Magneton. And that does mean knocked out, that does mean your opponent takes a prize. Although, to be honest with you, we're kind of relying on giving our opponent a prize. We'll get there in a moment. But what we're doing here is basically giving ourselves consistency, so we have got the perfect supporter card at the perfect time. What's that? Your opponent just used Intrepid Sword on Zacian. They've got a 10-card hand. Gee whiz! Sure would be annoying if you dropped a Marnie right now. Your opponent's got a Pokemon on their bench that you really need to take out right this second. Oh, look. All of a sudden, you've got that boss's orders perfectly. Your opponent has hit you, but not been able to take a KO. You really need to heal off right now. Hey, look. It's Mallow and Lana, and so on and so forth. Magneton grabs 3 supporter cards. What you can do here is just set yourself up for the next 3 turns. Though do remember that Marnie puts your hand on the bottom of your deck and Professor's Research discards your hand. So you can't be trying to use those cards all in a row, because using one of those draw cards will kind of mess you up for using the others. But really, we're looking at 3 supporters. We're looking at giving up a prize. We should be looking at Lieutenant Surge's strategy. It's banned and expanded, but it's still alive and well in Standard. And Lieutenant Surge's strategy is a supporter card that only works if you've got more prizes left than your opponent. Let's say, for argument's sake, just an example off the top of my head, you haven't taken any prizes, but you've given one up with Magneton. Oh, look how that worked out. And then you can play 2 more supporters after playing Lieutenant Surge. So you play Lieutenant Surge, and what you essentially do is you play a Green's Exploration, search for a couple of trainer cards, and then you play Boss's Orders. Or you play Mallow and Lana to switch and heal, and then you play Professor's Research to give yourself a new hand, etc. It basically lets you double supporter. And the only downside of Lieutenant Surge is basically 2 downsides. You need to be behind on prizes in order for it to work, and you need to actually have Lieutenant Surge and the other 2 supporter cards you want to play in hand at the perfect time, which isn't always an easy thing to do. Well, the good news is that both of those problems are rather perfectly solved by, literally and figuratively, blowing up your Magneton. So that sounds like fun. But we can go a little deeper here, and I want to use a couple of examples. I want to use Centiskorch. Now, hopefully you guys were watching the Players' Cup last weekend, and hopefully you saw that, as well as seeing play in a bunch of other places, I played against this a few times in qualification, but on the Players' Cup broadcast, you probably saw a Centiskorch deck that used Magneton. I do hope I'm remembering that correctly and it wasn't somewhere else I saw it. You'd like to think I'd remember by now. But essentially, the theory with Centiskorch VMAX here was absolutely beautiful. Because on the one hand, right, you're a fire deck, you want to use Welder. Welder lets you attach 2 fire energy and draw 3 cards. Problem with Welder is it means you can't use stuff like Green's Exploration, it means you can't use stuff like Boss's Orders, because it is your 1 supporter for the turn. Well, Lieutenant Surge's strategy fixes that perfectly. But hang on a second, Wossy, I'm giving my opponent prizes. This doesn't sound like a very good thing, does it? Well, yes, it kind of does. And the reason, very simply, is Reset Stamp. You see, Reset Stamp here makes your opponent shuffle a hand into their deck and draw a new hand of cards equal to their remaining prizes. So when you're playing Centiskorch, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you're going to use 2 Magneton, giving up 2 prizes, or you're going to use a Volcanion in the early game. Remember, it's got Flare Starter that lets you search for a Fire Energy and attach it from your deck, or 3 if you went second and it's your first turn. And you got High Heat Blast, which is a decent attack, 110 if you got 2 other energy on the field. So 2 on Volcanion, 2 anywhere else, including Volcanion. And then you do 110 of a single prize Pokemon. That sounds pretty good to me. So the theory here is you lose either a Volcanion and a Magneton, or 2 Magneton, and either way you've given up 2 prizes. You then have a Centiskorch VMAX in the active. It's a giant Pokemon, gives up 3 prizes, has 320 HP, and it's got an attack for 2 energy that does 40 damage base, plus 40 more for each energy on it. And if you do any damage when you attach an energy from your discard pile, which sounds quite nice. So you build up a big Centiskorch. It is a very intimidating, very horrible Pokemon to try and take down. And maybe your opponent manages it, and maybe they don't. If they don't, you win the game. If they do, you put up a second Centiskorch. Except remember, you've given away 2 prizes. And your opponent's taken down a Centiskorch, they've taken 5 prizes. So what you do now is you play Reset Stamp. You put your opponent down to a 1-card hand, then you chuck up a free prize, 320 HP Centiskorch hitting big damage, and you basically say to your opponent, look, I've got a Centiskorch, I'm going to keep taking prizes every turn, because not only is Centiskorch pretty gosh darn big, but Centiskorch also keeps getting bigger every single turn. Then, you've got a 1-card hand, so not only do you have to take down this Centiskorch and take it down pretty quickly before it gets out of control, but you've got to do so starting with a 1-card hand. Now, if you really want to try and take advantage here, if you really want to try and get a little bit cheeky, one thing I would recommend very highly: Power Plant. Now, Power Plant maybe not perfect in a Centiskorch deck because you really want Giant Half to search out your Fire Energy in order to actually get it attached with Welder, but maybe just play like 1 copy of this and search it out with Green's Exploration, and then essentially your late game Green's Exploration will search you out a Reset Stamp and a Power Plant, and your opponent can't use stuff like Dedenne or Oricorio. Power Plant turns off abilities of GX Pokemon, and they've got a 1-card hand to begin with, and this is going to get pretty gosh darn hilarious pretty gosh darned quickly. The other Pokemon that I think works absolutely beautifully with this particular strategy is Coalossal VMAX. Now, Coalossal VMAX is another one of these that is a very, very big Pokemon. You've got a whopping 330 HP, just 10 away from the highest we've ever seen. And, well, your first attack here is Eruption Shot. 40 damage. Discard the top card of your deck. If it's an energy, you do 130 and attach it to Coalossal. But what you really want here is G-Max Boulder that does 240 damage for 4 energy. Sounds pretty good. The problem here, of course, is that it can take some time to build up. The thing is, first of all, Magneton is going to give you awesome extra consistency. Secondly, there are 2 cards you really want to be playing here, both of which depend on you being behind on prizes. First of all, you want to be using Martial Arts Dojo. Martial Arts Dojo is a stadium card that does an extra 40 damage if you've got a fighting energy attached, but only if you're behind on prizes. The other one you want to be playing around with here is Karate Belt, which reduces the attack cost of fighting Pokemon by 1 fighting energy if you're behind on prizes. So what you do here is you use Magneton, you then go behind on prizes, but it's alright. You grab Lieutenant Surge. One of the cards you get is going to be Green's Exploration. When you're playing 2 supporter cards and you're trying to look for specific tricks, Green's Exploration really does turn into a great option here. And then use Greens to grab yourself Karate Belt and Martial Arts Dojo. And hopefully here, you've been able to get some energy on. Maybe you played around with Turbo Patch. Or, let's face it, you're searching out supporter cards. Let's go for Rose. Now, Rose is an awkward one because Rose makes you discard your entire hand, but Rose also attaches 2 basic energy from your discard to one of your Pokemon VMAXs. So essentially, you blow up Magneton, You search for Green's Exploration and Rose. You use Green's Exploration to get yourself Karate Belt and Martial Arts Dojo. You use Rose to get 2 energy on. And bearing in mind this means you needed an energy turn 1 or turn 2, it doesn't matter. Karate Belt pays an energy, Rose pays 2 energy. And now all of a sudden you've got 4 energy on Colossal and 1 spare. And you're hitting 280 damage. So you go first against an ADP deck, for instance. And if this works, if this goes well, if you can pull off this trick well enough, by turn 2, you're hitting for 280 and getting a 1-hit KO on them. That is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. That is absolutely ridiculous. And then, of course, the goal here is you use a single prize Pokemon or a second Magneton, and then when your opponent takes down the first Colossal VMAX, we just go straight back to, I'm going to reset stamp you to 1, and you've got to go through a 330 HP free prize Pokemon to take your 1 remaining prize. And yeah, the goal here would literally be to only have a Colossal out, so your opponent couldn't boss his orders something weaker off the bench. It's fun. I'm not saying Magneton is going to help every deck or even every VMAX deck, but I'm hoping I've demonstrated quite nicely how Centiskorch and Colossal here can use Magneton to set up game states which are quite frankly very upsetting for your opponent. But now I'd like to hear from you, lovely ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to know if you've played around with Magneton. I'd like to know if you plan to play around with Magneton. And I want to know if you've got some other ideas for Pokemon that would work really well with it, other than the ones mentioned in this video. So go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.